All right, let's do it.
Okay, so Danny hasn't seen this SpaceX IPO yet, but it was one of the most, and I'm going to try to be as charitable as I can. It's one of the most interesting corporate or business documents that I've ever seen. For shits, I actually looked at WeWork, which was funny, as well as some of the IPO things or IPO like things that a lot of the meme stock, crypto bro scam products that have come out. Those are kind of funny to look through as well. But this one's really interesting because I tried to be as charitable as possible, but I was like, nothing about this even seemed like a business to me.
Right.
Like it was like AI in space. And the only thing I can think of, Danny, is if you actually, you just briefly look at, just the margins, the investment necessary, the losses, everything. It's they're saying there's an untapped market in essentially long haul rocket flights across the world. So basically, they're going to have like a passenger hypersonic rocket that people are going to long haul travel in.
Yeah,
I don't
the
know
thing,
about you,
well, the
but I'm
thing
not
is,
taking a trip to China pulling 4Gs.
yeah, well, not only that, but like if you look at his track record, I'm not sure what the number is, but how many of his rockets have just blown up? So
Yeah,
now, like the next logical assertion would be to transition into consumer and passenger vehicles, right?
right, right. And what was was it the Dogecoin thing where he recommended everybody buy Dogecoin and then a bunch of people got burned in like a pump and dump sort of
Well,
situation?
what he okay, so his thing, I genuinely believe he just likes trolling people. And
Mm-hmm.
Doge, if you know the history of it, it came out like soon after Bitcoin, and it was
Mm-hmm.
basically it was a joke. I mean, the dudes were, it was just a bunch of blockchain dudes who understood the technology. They released a coin like haha whatever, and it was meant as a meme coin. It was the first meme coin essentially.
Right.
And it
Mm-hmm.
even had the little Shiba Inu picture, from a meme, right? So it was never meant to be taken seriously. And frankly, if you look at the design of the Cybertruck, I just think it's him just trolling.
That's
So
perfect that you bring that up, though. Guess where almost all of those Cybertrucks ended up going?
hopefully into space.
SpaceX.
Oh, really?
They're a SpaceX, so he took the product that nobody could afford or really wanted to buy from Tesla, and SpaceX made a purchase of all of
Sure. So
them.
he's just,
So they're
you know,
so right. So there's clearly a lot of that going on here too, where it's like we take, turn Twitter into X and then XAI, and then you merge that, collapse that into SpaceX.
yeah. One
So
thing,
it's
speaking of that, and one thing that you pointed out, I just pulled this up, but it's just like a
there it
bunch of
is.
random
To
pictures of
build the
things.
systems, yeah, to build
So,
the
so is this
systems
like
and
the moon or the
technologies.
Death Star? I don't know what's going on over here. This looks like Mars.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so some more pictures of rockets. This is what kind of caught my eye because I haven't read this full disclosure, but I do know
Mm-hmm.
he's made some tweets about AI in space, which I mean, in fairness, that's not his worst idea. There are some benefits, but you're trading a lot of the problems that we have here on Earth for just a different set of problems, right?
That we don't
Um,
have solutions to because the capex and infrastructure necessary to even try it is incredibly expensive,
right.
obviously, and it's an incredible gamble. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
so
don't
it
know
just
about you,
just
but
kind of keeps going like this.
yeah,
Uh, we finally get to some content here. Yeah, I haven't had a
right.
chance to really scrutinize it, but it does seem that the whole AI in space thing is going to be one of his primary focuses. I understood. I watched a thing, a little interview with him about why he does what he does and everything, and he was talking about the proliferation of consciousness throughout the cosmos, digital and biological. And I was just pausing, like, do you even know what that word means?
Yeah, yeah. And apparent what's our favorite little go-to? It's the shwoom shwoom.
Yeah, shroom
It's
shroom, like
the
shroom shroom. And what was funny about that, and I'll try to find the clip.
Shooting AI satellites into deep space. It's going like shoom, shoom, just one after the other.
But what's funny about that is that he gave this like pregnant pause. I guess people were supposed to laugh and they didn't, so he's like shroom shroom. Like it's so cringe, it's almost endearing, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And this is just look. You gotta hand it to him. I mean, I what do you even say? You know what I mean? Like I just not just with the whole Elon bag, but to actually have either the naivety or the balls to try to. I don't know, man. I don't know about you. If I tried to pull something like this, it would have to be as a satire deal.
Yeah, I
You
mean, well,
know, like
what's
I
kind
would.
of sad is that at least I have you in my life to pull me aside and be like, Danny, like, whoa,
Yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah.
think
And
about
he
this here,
probably
bud.
just
It's
has yes men
very
around him.
clear that he doesn't have like a best friend or like a confidant even, and that they're all basically just sycophants around him. I know Stephen Hawking had that problem when he would present stuff. Everybody's just like, oh, okay, and
Yeah,
there would be like blatant errors in there, and he'd be like, you can tell me, hey, you made a math error here. You can, I don't know, voice some kind of dissent because he did say stuff that was wrong throughout his career, right? So it's like,
everybody does.
yeah, exactly.
Every
Even
human,
Stephen Hawking, right? So it's really
right?
important that you have that person in your life that could kind of pull you aside and say, hey, buddy, walk it back a little bit. And he just clearly doesn't have that, which is that to me, that's very sad.
Yeah, that's that's incredibly sad, actually. But the this what I'm really this and like at least with AI, you can when I looked into the research of AI overall, me, I'm tend to lean way, way, way into the skeptic side of things. Like I'm a very like uh, practical, hard nosed, scientific. I mean, I'm a chemist by training. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's like hard medicine, hard chemistry, like things you can touch, feel, that are real, right? Uh, and when I see things like this or all these promises about an AI god and all this other, all that other stuff, and I hear some of the stuff Jensen Wong says, and I'm like, look, I'm a Bucky Fuller fan, but th- these people go real far
Well,
into,
it's if
like,
you look at the original promises of AI, like we're talking about in the 50s, even John von Neumann was like, yeah, sure, we're gonna have human level AI here in like 10 years. And that
mhm,
was actually the pitfall of those eras which caused the original AI winter. What is an AI winter? It's basically when there's some facet of AI that doesn't deliver as promised and therefore funding gets pulled. And it's unfortunate
mhm.
because it's very deleterious to the science of it or the math and all that, the development of it because there's just no money. And I know I got into AI in one of those winters. In like the
Mhm.
70s and 80s, there was a move called expert machines and basically or expert systems and basically they were supposed to run power plants and stuff like that. It's actually a fairly reasonable use for AI, just the control
Of
systems and
course,
whatnot.
absolutely. Yeah,
And even
control
then they
system,
couldn't
right?
they just couldn't
Yep.
handle it. So there was a AI winter basically up through the Google era. So like in the early 2000s when I started studying it, there wasn't a lot of funding. There certainly wasn't the cloud and all this stuff that we have now. Um, but now obviously we have those things, and it was necessity, right? So my point in all this is I've seen several. I've lived through several waves. Obviously, I haven't seen the one from the 60s, but the point is that when you make promises like that and you don't deliver, that's not only not only is that indicative of a bubble bopping, but it's deleterious to the science as a whole, which I've been involved in for 20
Right,
years. So I take that personally.
right. No, I'm with you. I don't feel that way about the AI stuff necessarily. Um, I do with in relation to Musk specifically. I feel that way more towards sustainability because if you remember, that's how he originally marketed everything. The whole EV things, the whole square roots, all of it was like sustainability. In fact, a lot of the the cash flow that Tesla originally got was from selling carbon credits,
Mhm.
right? So, you know, like here's the problem with that though. Just like you're saying with AI, he already sort of piggybacked on the sustainability thing as like I'm a sustainability, I'm a solar guy, I steer away from pollution and more towards a sustainable society. And what did that do? All of that acted as like a bug lamp, if you were, or a bug zapper, right? Where people gravitated to it for like for genuine, real good reasons, right? But he didn't really follow through, and a lot of that capex, Danny, just ends up evaporating,
Well, that's
right?
one pet peeve of mine when people say like, "Well, I want to buy a Tesla because of the environment." It's like, no, you don't. No, you
Yeah,
don't.
yeah,
You want to
right.
get it to virtue signal and posture and have like the newest, coolest thing. Because if you actually did the research, you would see that just the creation of the battery alone puts out more carbon than my car will put out in its lifetime, a gas-powered vehicle. So, one of my minor pet peeves, but when you pass 40, everything seems to piss you off. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was always fan. I think pretty soon here we may actually see a resurgence in hybrids. To be honest, because I think the hybrid design was pretty amazing,
Yeah.
especially with a lot of the new battery tech now.
Yeah.
Like China has a lot of great new battery tech. Like they moved away from nickel hydride and everything like that, and went towards sodium battery.
Sodium. Yeah, the
Yeah,
sodium
which
ion.
is fantastic.
Mhm.
There's a lot of converging factors now where there have been proof of concept. If things work out uh, in a reasonable way, hopefully we'll see like real actual companies start to create uh, those known techs now, like
Mhm.
thorium, for instance. Which again, China is ahead in though. They have the commercial reactors. The United States had its first thorium reactor that was perfect in the 1960s.
Yeah,
And
small
why did
small
we?
scale nuclear is really the way to go.
Sure, but thorium in particular,
Yeah,
because you don't have the toxic waste afterwards.
exactly.
Why did we go towards just uranium reactors? That was due to the military industrial complex.
Of course.
Because part of that process, you get plutonium. What can you use plutonium for?
Dirty
Bombs.
bombs.
Right. So there was a moment in the 60s when we actually had operating thorium. We could have used that and just scaled out our entire grid.
Mhm.
Instead, again, this is where you look at, again, I'm sure China has all sorts of problems, right? I've never lived there, right? But when you look at how they operate, they're a very serious country, a lot of good engineers, a lot of good science, and a lot of good planning, right? And they're really, instead of spending all of their resources in foreign wars, right, blowing stuff and people up, they've instead done the opposite and invested
Mhm.
inside of the country, right? And that's the huge tragedy of the entire thing, Danny, because we're
Yeah, I think
still doing
with
that.
that, I think that this is a good time to transition into some of the more geopolitical stuff. I see here we are seeing another big drawdown. What was the date on this? Whoops.
Look at look at
Looking.
May,
Yeah. Okay.
minus 8.7.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's the biggest drawdown in history. And
I mean, it's up there. Yeah, I've seen them in like the 14s, but it's never a good thing when you see
no,
drawdown.
no, it's been biggest, fastest single monthly drawdown
Oh,
on
monthly.
record.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, well, so if you remember from our previous podcast, I was saying how, okay, one drawdown, it happens, even two, but I mean, this is pretty red, right? All across the board.
Mhm.
So, there's really not a lot of hope here in this chart anyway.
Right, and these are one-time deals. But that's what trying to point out here is that, look, is Hormuz open? No, just like we said it
No,
wouldn't.
no, and that's what I've been telling everybody. I think that it's kind of like I have a moral obligation to at least tell my friends and family, like, hey, prepare for some hard times because June's coming up. And I think that mid-June is when we're going to see this stuff start to really spike because as we mentioned, and we've been pretty consistent about this, let's say the Hormuz was open tomorrow. All
Still
right.
take
Well,
4 months. Yeah.
it's still going to take what was it, 4 months before we
Hmm.
get to see those resources being pumped in, and by then, I mean, we're practically at the end of summer, right? So we still
Hmm.
have the summer months, which are projected to be pretty brutal this particular summer, to wade through.
And China's still on a buying strike, right? So they haven't entered the market yet. So it's again, I would like this to. I think they should call this like uh, what did they call the operation originally? Epic Fury.
Yep.
They should have called it like Peace Blue Balls or something. You know what I mean? Because it's like there's gonna be peace, there's not gonna be peace. There's gonna
Well,
be
that's
peace, there's
true.
not gonna
Yeah.
be peace. You know, when really when you boil it down, it's again, I here's what, like I said before, what I do see happening is I don't think Trump and I'm sure there are many people saying one last big strike, one last big strike. The problem with that is Iran has rearmed itself uh, and tested its air defenses even more, and they're ready. They're very, very, very ready for the United States. And apparently, the Mideast monarchies aren't letting us access to their airspace. So what's probably taking time, and the reason why you saw um, that Trump talking about the negotiations and how he's not going to bomb Iran or whatever, that probably wasn't due to them begging him to not do it, although they probably were. It was more just you can't use our airspace. And
Yep.
logistically, that makes it far more difficult. That means we need to reroute the KC 135s and a lot of the logistics flows that would be necessary for an offensive to take
Yeah, that
place.
alone just sounds like a nightmare.
So, but it can happen. It can still happen, but it's going to be a lot harder if those airspaces are not allowed
Right.
to be used. So,
So speaking
we'll
of which, speaking of routing, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on here?
okay, right here is the overall. A lot of people don't really look at this area of the world, but for decades now, China has been building infrastructure for trade corridors, the new Silk Road, if you will, Belt and Road. Okay. So as you can see, they have routes going all the way through the EU, up through Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Turkey, but also there's routes through Iran and East Asia. Okay. That actually go that that tran that are supposed to in the future trade with Africa,
Hmm.
right? That's the strategy that they have built out. Now, last month, Hegseth signed a defense agreement with Indonesia, which is down and to the right, where that little black dot is, that island chain there. That you can see that pathway, that aquatic pathway through the South China Sea up to China. Normally, that's the trade route where they get oil via the Strait of Hormuz, right? So, Strait of Malacca, the big ones are the Panama Canal, the Red Sea, okay, uh, Hormuz, and Malacca. Those are the really, really, really important trade routes, okay? We've already signed a defense agreement with Indonesia, so that tells me that that foothold is being placed. What's interesting about that is recently, though, apparently the Trump administration has held off on giving. They've already made, like they've already paid for it and everything, but they're holding off at present at delivering the arms to Taiwan and Indonesia, which is interesting. There's something going on there where perhaps they don't feel confident in, say, the arms stockpiles that we currently have because,
Right.
our munitions are so low, or we're not as confident anymore in our ability to challenge or contain China.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't want to go through with that, right?
Yeah, that I think that that's becoming more and more evident, especially now with the current situation, you're basically seeing the emperor without his clothes.
Yeah. All right. So I was going to talk about my specific preferred, what I've figured out as far as like my particular process to see what you think about this. So the way I looked at it, I talked to you about this before, is uh, most of our cohort is actually in debt, usually student debt. Okay. And wages don't fit to where they can adequately pay that down. Okay. Very few Americans can even afford equities overall, but that's not where the real value is. The real value, not just globally, but even bull market in the United States, they say equities are absurdly high. That's true in dollars. When you price it in gold, that's not the case, right?
Mhm.
We peaked in gold when we were young during the 2000 bubble,
Right.
right? That's when our stock valuation really measured in a hard money, right?
Hmm.
Like gold was at its peak value. And I don't know, Danny, what do you think about the economy back then? Which was better, then or now? Back then, big
It's
time, right?
very clearly back then. In fact,
Yeah.
one of the things that I've told you privately, but I'm pretty vocal about is just when you and I, graduated college and we entered the workforce, late 2000s, early 2010s, thereabouts. Um, Life has never been better than when we started. It's just been a precipitous decline from there. And we were like I entered the workforce in the midst of the calamity of 2008. So things were bad. And then to think of just everything from just basic necessities to what income do you have to I don't know, have a meager savings.
Right.
I believe it's a third of the population, if they had a medical issue or whatever, and couldn't use credit, they don't have $500 in the bank. Right.
Yeah.
So we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about a sizable percentage of the population that lives paycheck to paycheck. So I could keep going on with these statistics, but measurably, things are far worse now than they were when we entered the workforce, and from what I remember, in the very early 2000s when we graduated high school.
Yeah. Home ownership, all of that. So the way I look at it is you could say equities, are, oh, they're insane. The valuations are so high. That's true in dollar terms, but in gold terms, they're actually pretty low. What that means to me is the real long term, my preferred long term savings vehicle is gold. Now, you can do that in an ETF like GLD,
Hmm.
but what I prefer is, if you say you want to trim fat and take some profits, translating, a certain amount of that when you take profits and not necessarily putting it into gold. But I like the idea of just trying to accumulate gold when it's at a bottom. What do
Yeah.
you think about that
Oh, of course.
strategy?
Yeah. So there's two main preferred, like for me, two preferred ways to enter a gold trade. There's obviously a lot of reasons that you would want to do that. One in particular that I find, that we've mentioned this in our conversations together, is the fact that when you have a physical thing, like even cash, you're more frugal about your purchases. When you have just a card, a piece of plastic that you can swipe and like buy anything you want, it's less tactile, the consequences, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just having something physical, and I'm sure that's by design, or at least a happy coincidence. So there's a lot of reasons why you would want to have gold in general. Obviously, that and the investment vehicle, as we mentioned. But there's two main approaches that you could take. You buy physical, which I do recommend because it's not out of the realm of possibility. Let's say we have a major hurricane here in Florida, and point of sale systems are down. We've had that like just I the year or two ago. I was in the snow area in South Tampa, no point of sale systems. You either had to pay
Mhm.
cash or figure out a way to barter if you wanted to, get a coffee or whatever. Of course, we only had that for a couple days, but just the fact of the matter is, since the dawn of time, gold has been a currency. Doesn't need a
Right.
point of sale system, doesn't need a network, and they actually make little flakes of gold that you can kind of flake off and buy smaller items with it. You don't have to come with a big gold bar, and
Right.
that's no, number one. Number two, as we see here in terms of the S&P 500, it is a valuation instrument, right? So another thing is housing. Right. So for the beginning, since the beginning of time, you could always value a domicile in terms of a certain quantity of gold. And that quantity has remained roughly the same
Right.
throughout the years because as housing prices go, so does gold. The other option that you could do is an ETF. I'm actually a fan of both. I'm going to tell
Mhm.
you why, because obviously we were sitting here talking about stocks and some of my selections. I've been building up a portfolio since the early 2000s, and sometimes you want a ETF, something that could offset the risk of other stocks, right? So when you build a portfolio, you can't just say, "Oh, I like this stock, I like that stock." Although that's fine, you could do that. What's really important is that you build what's called a risk neutral portfolio. And what that means is that the risk from one thing kind of offsets or
Mhm.
balances out the risk from another, right? So if you're heavy into tech, using that as an example, maybe get into some commodities or durable goods or something like that, because when tech crashes, those are the things that are going to buoy your portfolio and help you weather the storm a little bit. So for me, even though the portfolio might not, do as good as say others during the good times, I almost never am underwater. Right,
Mhm.
it's just a steady kind of incline. Right, that's number one. Number two, a lot of those ETFs actually pay dividends. So what physical gold, as much as it does have its advantages, and I recommend having some, or I make no recommendations. I'm just saying I do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as they do have their advantages, they don't pay dividend, right? So
Uh-huh.
having both, right, some in your portfolio to offset risk and pay you dividends, assuming that you choose the right ones. There's a bunch of options. We'll get into to your favorite here in a second. And then have some physical on standby just to have. How awesome would it be, to pass on to your progeny, a big chunk of gold, the wealth that you've accumulated throughout your entire life, in addition to some stock portfolios, because stocks are still, they're not tactile in the sense that you can actually hold a physical brick of gold.
Yeah. Yeah. There were numerous. My postdoc in the USF lab, uh, he paid for everything in cash, and I asked him why, and he cited several studies showing that people that actually pay in cash, the fact that they have to withdraw it from the account, and then every time they pay for something, they actually have to open up their wallet and hand something over. So it turns out that there's a direct relationship. There's a coefficient of friction
Sure.
with transactions, right? The higher that friction is, the more frugal people become.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, no,
So
and it makes perfect sense.
what I
And
like
and
about physical gold and silver, right, is that's actually you have to usually if you want cash, right, you need to go to a coin dealer or a pawn shop or whatever. It's always going to hold value. It never goes to zero, right?
yeah,
But it actually there's steps in order to ever want to like cash out. Because of that, you tend to accumulate it, and
right.
that's yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
just
How
simply because
interesting
it's
the
not easy.
parallel of that
Right.
and war. Like, you have guys like Lindsey Graham just sitting behind their desks,
Right.
making decisions that will send other people to go to war. But imagine if you had to do it. But that's
Yeah,
a
you would think twice.
Yep,
Exactly.
exactly. So,
Exactly.
I guess we can this is a good segue into the stocks that we have selected. I know.
They're actually down right now. So if you wanted to pile on more or get in around now, uh,
So
I
I think that
I
this is
thought about
actually for our selections at least, this is a really good time frame. So me, I don't necessarily put all my eggs in one basket. I just gradually accumulate, a couple
mhm,
$100 every paycheck or whatever, stash it aside, accumulate some. So this is great for me. I'm happy to ride this wave as long as I can because that means I can accumulate some more of the selections that we have. Let's start with USO.
mhm.
Um,
Although that recently went up as the ETF, I think. I like USO at the bottoms, usually after Trump tweets something that's like a peace agreement.
well, if you
That's what
look
I like.
here, my indicator's really good at picking out these lows.
Hmm.
Also, if you pair it with this the Chand, it's the purple looking indicator. It's kind of good to cross reference it because you should see a peak or a valley.
Right. Hmm.
So what that measures is it's kind of like an oscillation, right, between buying and selling, and it typically aligns pretty well with a peak or a valley as a confirmation that you have a low. That's number one. Number two, if you look for the green triangles again, those are identifying some of those, the dips and the red
Bottoms, yeah,
triangles
dips,
on the
yeah.
high. Bonus points if you correlate this with, say, the Fibonacci levels and they align. Right, so I just did this off the cuff. Maybe it's better if we do something like that. Yeah, here. So we see alignment here with the Fibonacci's. And, I drew this with hindsight because we're obviously over here. But if we rewind the clock and we drew these Fibonacci's, I guarantee you they'd also align with the Fibonacci extensions as well. So it's just another
Hmm.
power of the Fibonacci levels is not just looking at the targets, but looking at the entry points in terms of these dips, like you said. So we're very buy on dip people. If I, um, you know, obviously we have faith in this to go higher, but do you really want to be the asshole who buys up here at say 150 while you have to ride this out? We're going to cover,
Right.
I think it was Oxy in a moment, where I did that. Despite the fact that I spent 20 years telling my students not to do it, I did it as well.
That
So I'm
happens.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm holding it underwater for a little bit. Full disclosure, don't do that. You can obviously look for better entry prices. The good news is that we look like we're coming upon a dip right here. It aligns with this little dip in the Kovac Chand. A little bit of a flat momentum here, but given what we're talking about with the economy the way it is, I can't see gold being suppressed for too much longer. I can.
Wait, gold or oil? Because this is oil.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I meant oil.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So we can actually look at the. Oops. We can actually look at oil right now if you want. This to me looks incredibly suppressed. I'll tell you why. We have a bunch of these red triangles here. Those are points of resistance where the asset tried to go higher but was
Hmm.
smacked down. Okay, these are often in a sane, healthy market, you see these and you have a retracement. You see the little cluster of these, maybe a cluster here, and you see this. We're not able to do that, which means that
Right.
there's pressure building, right? And so, you see a little bit of a retracement here. Again, lots of support. So it's like there's some extreme ambivalence there. There's a lot of forces on the buy, a lot of forces on the sell. So I
Hmm.
just think that this is mounting to blow, especially given geopolitical situations, and especially as we start heading into June. We have 116 here as a relative high. I can't see that even holding, right? So if as the fallout from Hormuz are depleted, um, you know um,
Inventories.
inventory, thank you, and the scorching summer months, the demand of the scorching summer months hit, we're looking at 150. So unless those things get addressed, oil and by proxy, USO, where'd you go? are going to start to do well. Now, so the question is, where do you enter? Well, frankly, I think current prices are a really good entry point. I can't see them dipping too much lower, but we do have a vacuum zone here to 132. Seeing as how this is a little bit of a pricier ETF, I might put an order here and wait. I'm a buyer
Mhm.
132, 126, but I certainly wouldn't fault you if you got in at 141 because again, coming as June creeps in, we just can't I don't think we're going to be able to keep this puppy down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Moving on to PR. This is a longtime favorite of the show. I
Yeah.
actually did some editing and I put a red line by where I got in, just so
Hmm.
we can keep ourselves honest. And as of now, I'm just right in the money here. But this is another one I believe is going to benefit quite a bit as we head into June. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a Permian play. I mean, they're just already now. I mean, you look at like their free cash flow and everything. I mean, they're just printing money.
Yep.
Even at current prices. But when it goes higher, and look, there's a like we said, there's a scenario here too, Danny, where like say we said, okay, peace tomorrow, there's still going to be a 4 month vacuum
Right.
for when and that's if everything goes perfectly, right? In that 4 month vacuum, do you think we're going to be able to keep prices at this level like for 4 months?
That's a
I
long
mean,
time.
with inventory, that's a long time,
Like, I
dude.
don't even
It's a
think
really
it's
long
been four
time.
months since the issue with Iran started. And look at how quickly we've depleted our resources, so our inventories.
Yeah, yeah. So the demand side's definitely there. So the only thing that's going to curb demand is to bring the price up.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
going to hurt a lot of people, but do
Well,
what you can with with the tools you have. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I saw that PR was down today. I bought a bunch of it like before all this started. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And I was just the first time I took profits from PR was they when I noticed Trump was doing the tweeting stuff, and I
Mhm.
was like, poop. So I did at a top there. I got out with some of them, but I've just been holding on, and I'm just thinking about getting back in at levels right now. You know what I
Yeah, yeah,
mean?
absolutely. That's a good
Piling up
good
more
idea.
shares.
Okay, so we have Cheniere Energy. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
CRGY. Yeah.
No,
CR.
this is
Oh, that's
LNG.
LNG. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just make
They were down
sure.
today too.
Yeah, I don't know why
Yeah,
it's the
that's
symbol is.
natural gas. No, it's a
Yeah.
natural gas play. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Then Nutrient, another favorite of the show. Always good to check in on that. That's another one I kind of FOMO'd in on. I bought where the red line is. Obviously, I'm holding. I'm actually pretty confident in this level here. The 50% Fibonacci is usually a pretty good indication.
Mhm.
The 382, that's obviously the next one on the docket. Anything south, and we're probably just going to retrace the whole thing. I
Mhm.
don't think that's the case here. We have the green triangles here for the technicals indicating strong support. We are at a 50% Fibonacci, also indicative of strong support. And this is a typical, if you're into Elliott wave theory, this is a typical 5-3 pattern. In my opinion, we're coming to the end of this little thing here is called a corrective phase. And it looks like we're coming to the end of that, indicating that we should be set to blast off. So, and anything you want to add on the fundamental side?
No, this one I mean, I've been holding on to it for a long time. And you know what I mean? It's just like the movement's been okay, but like it's just especially with the way it's been sitting here for a while, like it's kind of like I've been looking at it in my portfolio and been kind of like, well, you know, but I should probably hold on to it.
Yeah, I mean,
Just,
there's that. This I see as a longer term play. I'm typically not a swing trader anyway. I will do that only with stocks that don't pay dividend. This guy does. So
mm,
this is more of an accumulation. I actually might even add. These are good levels to add
at
in
the
my
level.
opinion.
Yeah.
Don't
Okay.
forget that it pays dividend. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. That's a good,
there,
good
there
point.
there's that.
Good point.
Next one. This is new. DVN. I don't think we've looked at this one
Yeah. That's
before.
Devon Energies.
Seven energies. Okay, this is again, I call this a dragon head pattern with, a little bit more volatility than what you usually see. Typically, they
Well,
consolidate a
they
little
bought
bit.
out Coterra, remember?
Hmm?
They bought out Coterra.
That's right. That's right. So they're the parent company. Okay, so
Yeah.
um, looking at this is a pattern that we see very similarly with a lot of the stuff that we're looking at. We have this nice up and to the right movement, a little bit of a consolidation here. I think that this is a good place to add up. Notice that or add to the position or enter it if you haven't been. 786 Fibonacci, that's a pretty healthy one. The risk is here that we will test the 4456. That's a 618 Fibonacci.
Mm.
And it looks like back here we have tested the 50% Fibonacci, which is a good thing because it held. Right. So we have a lot of support here and consolidation. Consolidation is a good thing. That's, for those of you not in the lingo, it's basically when we start to squish down this volatility here. So the difference between the high and the low here is much,
Yeah.
much larger than the difference between the high and the low here. That's called a consolidation. And typically those precede breakouts. So breakouts
Right.
either way. You can only keep something bottled for so long before, it's like squishing a spring. It wants to, it wants to expand. So typically that can go either way, obviously, because, it was Coterra or Elemental that they bought.
Coterra. They bought
Yeah. Okay.
Coterra. Yeah.
So we've covered Coterra here before. Big fan of that. And so, we're bullish of this. So the sentiment is that we're going to break out to the upside. But
So I should
I'm looking
probably
at
pile in more. I should, yeah. Okay. Add to my position on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 618 Fibonacci, the 786, that's 4807, 4456 if you're conservative, and maybe even have a Hail Mary play here at 4210. Typically, what you want to do is stagger the orders so you get the best price possible, but you still get in. So I could see buying, say, one share here, a couple shares here, and a couple shares here. Get if we're lucky enough, you could have four to six shares of this, on this play right here, but having limit orders there to try to get in on a good price. But yeah, that's my analysis for DVN. We also have CF. Um, okay, we've obviously also looked at this.
Hmm.
I love when the levels just happen to align with. So what this is saying, we've already hit a Fibonacci extension, which means I probably drew this. I want to say back here because it looks like the anchor of the Fibonacci's the one is hitting here. And I kind of extended it out, I guess, to give us some options for levels. But basically, yeah, we've already hit the target from whenever we did this at 137. That would be a great time to take profits. We're kind of this is more of a typical dragon head pattern. You see this long bullish move followed by a retracement, some consolidation. Again, typically those if you do have a bullish sentiment, this means that a breakout is I would say imminent. So yeah, I would say if you can get in at 112, this is a range, which means we're there, I'd say a 75% chance probability that we would retrace and test this again. But very strong support here. Once things break out, unless they like fully, retrace hard, you have very good support from the anchor of the Fibonacci. 880, 886, 786 would also be places I would be a buyer. But again, I think the best you're going to do is 112.60.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you have anything to add on this one?
Nope. Nope.
Okay. OVV. All right, so this is another one that I like to see. Dragon head type pattern. Very look at this. Look at this rally here.
Damn. Yep.
This is one where I probably would have FOMO'd in. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie. Just because you see this and you're like, well. you know? I'm human too, even though of course I tell my students not to do this. It just is what it is. But anyway, we have had a nice retracement here. Again, looking at the 618, look at how well these Fibonacci's are respected. This has been a theme in the stocks that we've looked at. Had great support just above the 50% Fibonacci. I don't see us going back there anytime soon. Just based, the blue is the buying momentum, right? So we
Right.
have just a lot of momentum behind this. Looking at 70.86 for an entry, a conservative entry at
Yeah.
57.19. But to be honest with you, if you wanted to do a market order and get in as soon as possible, I mean, you wouldn't be holding underwater that much, 5% or so. Still 5% is 5%, and 57.19, worst case 52.88, maybe have a
Mm.
couple orders there. Um, what was this? Okay, so we just did
We covered the
OVVG.
gold and the silver. Yeah.
GLD. So this would be Spider Gold shares. Um, so again, we have this. Let's actually do. Okay.
Now, what I think may be happening in when you look at spot gold, that uh, it's
Wow, look at this.
yep,
What a beautiful chart. Yeah, and how the Fibonacci is aligned. This is good. If you notice, when I don't necessarily go to the very peak of the Fibonacci. I try
yep,
to get like the peak of the congestion zone because this is volatility, right?
right.
And this is just a technical lesson for those of you looking to increase your Fibonacci skills and do what we do. You don't want to put it here. I typically don't. Look at how I've already lost the alignment, right?
Yep.
If I put it here,
More coherence.
more
Yep.
coherence, exactly. So that's just an aside here, but I don't like the rapid retracement here. Granted, we do have strong support from the green triangles with the KRI and the 786 Fibonacci. But guess what? If we do fall, this is a time where you
Right.
want to add up at right
You'd want to
here.
add there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So this is rather expensive, so I definitely don't want to FOMO in on this one. I'd be putting limit orders here at 354. So, um, okay, SLV, Silver Dollar Resources. Oh, do I have this right? Silver Dollar Resources?
Uh, I don't. No, 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 no. That was an abbreviation. If you look, there's a
Ah, it's
slash
an
three before.
abbreviation for silver.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have that on my other, let's see here. And I have my trusty silver, and the Fibonacci's are already drawn because I do follow it quite a bit. We can drag this out. Silver is actually at a very good price. Given what we've said, it's not terribly hard to infer that the commodities are the way to go,
Hmm.
at least as a hedge. Like let's say you had a stock portfolio, at least get a hedge of some physical silver. Can't do you any wrong, right?
Right.
So here the snout of the dragon head is, again, consolidation of volatility. This, I had the Fibonacci's here so I could get real fine grained on that range here. But let's zoom out even further, and I can go ahead and hide this. Yep. So if we, uh, let's see, this one's a little messier. I'm gonna put it here. Ah, and voila, we still have our coherence. Good. So I did pretty okay on this. Okay. Um, Now back out to the 4 hours. See, sometimes charting is a little tricky because sometimes you got to play with the time intervals so that you
Hmm.
get the most coherent range and that the levels make sense. And just visually, this just looks beautiful how these align. And we're actually at a 618 Fibonacci level, which is golden, no pun intended. So even if you were to buy spot here, sorry, with a market order here. Um, that's not unthinkable. A good price, in my opinion, would be 64.30. But again, just with what we're dealing with, I just don't know how long we're going to see prices looking like this.
Yeah, yeah. If you actually look like man, you're especially if you're trying to get physical, you're lucky if you can get 70. I mean,
Oh,
lucky. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
yeah.
it's yeah,
No, these are futures, mind you. It's a futures continuous contract, but
right.
it does mirror the optimal
Spot
price,
physical, yeah,
the
right.
like perfect world kind of price of silver pretty good.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, floor. Okay, so your floor is at 70, mine's at 64, just based on the Fibonacci's. We're splitting
Hmm.
hairs here.
Yeah.
Okay, so new stocks to look at. All right, so let's go back actually to the I have separate lists for these. What was it? ENPH?
Hmm.
ENPH. And we're gonna
That's an interesting solar stock. Um,
So
that's a
typically I don't like these. I know fundamentally we may have something we want to look at. This is I call this a death spiral.
hmm.
And that is once we've established a high, it's not impossible, but technically it is very difficult to recover from a sell-off like this. And that's just because investors are scared. Like even if you're doing they
Hmm.
look at this and be like, "Oh, I don't know." So the psychology is not good. That being said, let's go ahead and zoom in because when you zoom in, you do
Right.
see, if you didn't see that, all the stuff we just saw out there, and you saw this is looking pretty good. Right, so I'm actually going to do this, anchoring my Fibonacci's here. I'm doing this to make a point. Is that suppose we didn't have this knowledge, right? And we were here. Well, we've already hit our target, right?
Hmm.
The 272. Okay, so if we do this, um, again, it doesn't pay dividend, which I don't necessarily like, but we could look at taking profits at 74.68. That would be what I would be looking at with this particular one. You said it's solar, so maybe why don't you give
Right. Yeah. The if you notice this huge bull spike right here, this is like an after Hormuz rally, right?
right.
So you can see the geopolitical event where it's like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like oil's a problem, and that doesn't surprise me at all because people are trying to diversify their energy portfolios
Yeah,
now,
that makes
right?
sense.
Which makes sense.
Yeah,
You're going to see that globally. Now,
right.
here's the only problem that you have to think about since the geopolitics is affecting it. Like they sell inverters and stuff like that. And they, it really, Danny, it does suck in the respect that, like, look, solar is a decent business, especially now since oil is so intrinsically geopolitical and everything, and not everybody has it. When you're a giant like China is, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, man, that's a little tricky. Now, I did want to ask. See, this is an American manufacturer. Now, SU, which we looked at previously, that's a Canadian company.
Right.
What I find interesting about Canada is uh, they're actually they're sort of straddling the fence, if you will, between trade deals with China and trade deals with the United States. You understand?
Sure.
So
China,
what I'm
Canada's
thinking
always
about,
been like that.
right? What I'm thinking about, really, SU would probably be a much better stock to have because they can get all those cheap solar components, right, from China, and then they could compete in the American and other markets.
Hmm.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if that rationale necessarily holds up, though. You know what I mean?
I mean, I could see it. Just Canada has issues of its own, and
Mm-hmm.
there are some tax issues with holding foreign stocks. Like you have to pay tax on them and stuff like that. So I try to
Mm-hmm.
avoid them when possible. But let's take a
Okay.
look at the next one. Ocolo.
Yeah.
Why are you? Oops, does not.
Yeah. It's
Hmm. Uh, Ocolo. Oclo. Okay.
okay. LO. Yeah.
All right. Quickly adjust my frame. Looks like another. Is this another solar?
No. Okolo's nuclear.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah,
American nuclear.
this I think okay, so a lot of times when you see this type of behavior, um, we're just entering this is not a considered a correction, it's considered a reversal, right? So
Right.
all this we just undid. Now the silver lining here, the good news is that, you know, after that, subsequently, you could see yet another reversal. So when it's like sitting here, like down, just completely retraced everything, that's usually very bad.
Mhm.
But what we're starting to see signs of life here with a little pivot to the 382 level. So it's like we haven't quite thrown in the towel yet. So that does give me some hope. If we go more toward, that what's cool is that there's a lot of levels intermediary that we could take profits if we want to. I mean, like let's say you got this price here at 46. I mean, 90 is effectively double, right? And
Mhm.
that's a very reasonable thing to do, given the growth that we've seen. So
Now, I wanted to bring this up, like just nuclear generally in the United States. I'm very much interested in nuclear. The only issue is, like, just recently, right? There have been a lot of permits granted and so forth for nuclear projects, right? So, is that long term bullish for nuclear in the United
yeah, I
States,
mean, there's
where there's
multiple
that
ways
energy
that the
demand?
government could inspire growth in a sector. I mean, in general, rate cuts, right? They
Mm-hmm.
they could actually become owners of stock, but grants are a great way to kind of push capital in the direction of essentially seeding a industry. So I'm with you. I unfortunately nuclear, for whatever reason, faced a lot of setbacks here in the U.S. But if we're
Yeah,
starting to see grants, we could be witnessing not just like a good buying opportunity, but a paradigm shift entirely, which would make sense. Again, as you mentioned, with what the issues with oil, trying to offset that with other technologies.
other right,
Yeah,
exactly. Now, the next two, Aura and SMR, uh, one's geothermal, which is interesting, and then
interesting.
SMR's nuclear. Ormat, I don't know what you thought about this one. I thought the movement was pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, it's not globally up and to the right, but if I zoom in here,
Hmm.
this looks pretty good, right? So clearly,
Hmm.
whatever issues they were having back here, yeah, and you do see that, right? You do see just paradigm shifts in the markets or different market conditions, and it's very clear that we have something like that at least since the beginning of 2025 here going on right now. So if we just kind of, mitigate the other stuff. Now that's not to say that we should ignore it. Like we do have a high here. This is very, very good. It looks like we have an all-time high. Let me just verify that. Yeah, so this is on the monthly. So if we go back, what that's saying is that this little wick, which obviously we're squished because we're on the monthly, but that corresponds to this. We've broken that. So when you break
Hmm.
all-time highs, that's a really good sign. And not only that, but we're holding it, right? So if you look,
Right.
we haven't had too long, but we did find support here at this all-time high. So technically, I'd say that this is rather good. If I use my technique for the Fibonacci's, we have, I mean, right here at 129.34 would be a great place to enter. Typically, once a stock has made all-time or beaten all-time highs, you do see some consolidation. So you see some wiggle
Right.
waggle around here, and that's normal. That's just it kind of accepting the new price range, and also buyers and sellers kind of coming to accord.
Meeting.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, meeting exactly. So, but the next target right here is 147.76. So I think that we could easily hit that with a pivot off 129.34, and that's a sweet little clip right there.
Now they just signed a bunch of contracts for, in particular, Google AI data centers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
SMR. Um, so new scale power. Again, this is just a personal thing. I don't like these death spirals. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean that there's not some new paradigm shift, but it's just it's a big disclaimer I like to give. Even if you don't do that, the technicals here still not,
Now,
something.
yeah, this is what I wanted to. New scale's interesting because when I looked into it, okay, it does seem that the Trump administration did try to push a lot into like SMR capacity, right? But what I think they're finding out is there's not enough bang for the buck. Do you see what I'm saying?
Certainly
For
seems like
like,
it.
especially with natural gas being what already it is in the United States and shale. That being the case, unfortunately, again, I don't think it's unfortunate. I don't think we're going to see a lot of nuclear investment or stocks take off in a
Yep.
really, really long time.
Yep.
Like I mentioned that to you in a text, didn't I? I was
Yes.
like, Danny, I'm not seeing it in the
No.
nuclear space. I can't, I want to see it. I'm not picking it up anywhere.
No, no, it's
It's,
unfortunate.
it's super
Um,
disappointing.
Now, Ura, this one was one that I have held for years. I'll tell you
Yeah.
some reasons why I do like it. It's not, I I guess we're having data issues loading before July. That happens sometimes. But this stock has been around for quite some time. Um, we're kind of rangy for now. But I bought this. I guess the little dinosaur means I- the the data got nuked by a meteor. I don't. I've actually literally never seen this symbol before, but I guess that's them saying, "Oh, I don't know."
It's
Anyway,
extinct.
um, so I don't know why it shifted to the Argentinian peso. That was unexpected.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties. Okay. So now we're in a little bit of a saner measurement. I got this at like $6. Not to
Hmm.
brag, but we've more than doubled at the peak anyway. And this is a good solid play. I think that first of all, it's backed by uranium. If you remember in the last podcast, I was trying to remember if they paid dividend. I thought that they did, and it turns out that they do. Actually, a pretty decent dividend, if I may say so myself. And again, it's a commodities hedge. So uranium is. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit geopolitically why uranium is so important and why it's quite valuable?
Um,
I mean, not just the obvious reasons.
yeah, I mean, what are you looking for specifically? I mean,
Well, in
it's such a
particular, okay,
rare.
so like we said,
It
first of all, I'd like to say that like you could buy physical silver, you could buy physical gold. Can't exactly buy physical uranium, or at least you should,
right,
that's generally regarded as a bad thing. So when we do talk about uranium, we have to understand where it's mined, right?
right.
Where it comes
That's the
from, the
geopolitical
difficulties in
significance of it.
procuring it. So that's more what I'm asking you when
Yeah.
yeah.
Um. Well, uh, it's it's mined. There are a lot of uranium deposits. Interestingly enough, Greenland is a huge place where there's a big uranium play, which is we know Trump has been talking a lot about Greenland specifically. I know Canada, their uranium sources. Russia's the big mover, though, as far as uranium goes, unfortunately.
Right.
Even uranium and titanium, the United States still has to deal with Russia ultimately
Mhm.
in order to get those deals done. Uh, so yeah,
Them's the breaks.
them's the brakes on it. I mean, they uranium and we have some sourcing of titanium, but in the quantities that we needed in the United States, especially even for our military industrial stuff, it's uranium. We got to deal with Russia. So yeah, that's the big one. Although interestingly enough, though, Danny, it turns out that like Iran, interestingly enough, like all of their uranium has been domestic. They mined it and everything in Iran.
Yeah, so
So
good
it's like
luck.
Yeah, good luck trying to say they can never, forever, a million years not have
Right, right,
to
exactly.
weapons
And
or
also good
anything.
luck with any kind of compliance. Like let's say that they did say, you know what, we're not going to do. Okay, like go ahead and police that. Good luck.
Right. Exactly.
So just looking at the levels here, if you did want to get into this one, again, don't forget the purpose of why I would, in my opinion, would get into something like this, and that is for a hedge against a larger portfolio, something that does pay pretty good dividends. So it's not like you're sitting there waiting for this to blast off. But if you look at, again, I bought it like $6, so it's done quite well since then. Not a big, a mooner. It's not going to moon on you, but look at this range. We're right in the middle. Toward the upper part, I guess, of a nice range where we have some good established levels. Looks like we may reject 1045 here at the 618 Fibonacci. 983 would be a tremendous place to buy. And we have all the way up. And if you wanted to, sell this, I'd be looking at 1245. Again, don't forget that this pays dividend.
And part of the reason why geopolitically this could go, I don't want to say nuclear, but part of the reason geopolitically why this could go much, much, much higher is simply because it's so scarce and Russia controls so much of it. You could see a situation where, say, Russia didn't want to sell us the uranium anymore. Then we would have to source it somewhere else. What do you think happens to something when it's incredibly scarce?
Yep, exactly.
The value goes up.
Sure, sure. So that's in my opinion, there's multiple reasons, both technical and fundamental, to be looking at this. There's a couple more that I wanted to add before we closed out.
Mhm.
This one is enterprise products part. Where are we? EPD. Um, okay, so this is a holdings company for natural gas and petrochemicals. It operates through the following segments. I'm just reading it just so that I don't make sure I fact check myself. NGL pipelines and services, crude oil pipelines and services. It is an American company. It is based out of Texas. What is cool about this one that I really, really like is it's what we call not just a dividend stock, but a dividend king, in that it pays six. I want to say 6%. We can actually check on that right now. 5.57. So, pretty, pretty decent dividend.
How much is
Um,
that?
sorry.
How much is that one?
So it's 30 39 72.
Oh, I like that.
Got the
I like
technicals
that.
pulled up already. And this is, I should add that I was actually using AI to find these. Now, when I use AI to find stocks, I don't just say, "Durr, give me good stocks, make me rich, durr."
Right,
Like, no,
right.
it's like, okay, here are the stocks that I'm looking at. Here's why. Here's what I think about geopolitics. I also want to maximize my dividends, right? So you give it a narrow set, actually a pretty narrow set of
Right.
confines that you want, and then you tell it to do its thing. And this is how I found this one. The next one that I found,
All
while
in the
here,
prompting. All in the prompting.
prompt engineering is going to be a university course, I guarantee you. Um, so we also have some levels here. I am probably just going to buy this at market because I do foresee this breaking out pretty soon. But if you wanted to play it safe, 38.63 and 37.66 are good levels for this. Moving on to the next one, Altria Group. Again, I mean, you see this, all these red triangles on the KRI here. This thing wants to blow.
Yep.
Okay.
I see it. I
Yep.
see it.
And so, this is one, it's 74.17, so it's not exactly a budget stock, but it is also another dividend king. If we move over to this guy, I'm gonna say why I like this in a second, but yeah, 5.75, that is non-trivial. It's a holdings company specializing in smokable products, oral tobacco products, like your little pouches, and all other, I'm assuming that's, vapes and other things like that. I foresee things getting really bad here economically pretty soon. And what happens, and no one would be more adept to answer this question than you, Zach. What happens when things get bad economically in this context?
Economics, especially the United States, is an interesting case. Is this specific to the United States in particular? Is this just overall tobacco products that sells internationally, or?
Well, overall, but again, I believe
No,
this.
you are right though. It is
Yeah.
going to be an international phenomenon too. Although I don't know if people in other countries really, are going to be going to be able to afford any tobacco products. But what happens is, especially in the United States, hyper capitalist society, when incomes dry up and you don't have any disposable income, which is what happens when energy and food costs run up, right? People are stressed. They're chronically stressed. So what they do is they relieve that stress any way they can. Usually that means consumption of some sort of compound that will take the edge off,
Bingo.
like tobacco, nicotine, alcohol. Unfortunately, we may see a resurgence in, you know,
Street drugs and stuff like that.
street drugs
It
and
is
so forth.
sad,
Yeah,
and we certainly
yeah.
don't advocate that, but it just is what it is. So I'm looking at this from a financial point of view, and we have another dividend king paying almost 6% dividends. It's a U.S. based company. It's at highs, just looking to blow out. And the next target here would be 79.46. So that's another selection I did again. Using
No, I
AI and
like your
what.
rationale on that too. It's an atypical rationale, it's creative one. Those are the ones I appreciate the most. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It's like people are going to be stressed. What are they going to do? Oh, they're going to go into tobacco products more.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. I tip the hat. Tip of the hat of the day or the week goes to Danny with this one. That's a good one.
Appreciate it.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah,
Yeah, so that's pretty much all I had, I guess.
that's all I got.
Yep. Awesome. We can end it here.
All right, Danny.
All
I'll
right.
see you later.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Take care.